What should you do when your neighbor has dementia? One sign of dementia is the inability to handle financial affairs. If you're an officer with a condominium association or a bank or other business, how can you be sure that those elderly are behind on their payments have dementia? How should you treat the elderly who might have dementia, and how can you tell if they have dementia? How can you be sure if the elderly who are cantankerous, irritating, or even abusive are not actually suffering from dementia? Please, we welcome interesting questions in the comments. Let us learn and reflect together. At the end of our talk, we'll discuss the sources we use for this video. Rotary has historically supported the Alzheimer's Association and funded research for Alzheimer's and dementia, both locally and nationally. These reflections are based on my personal experience and research. My sources are cited, but these views are not endorsed by the Rotary or the Alzheimer's Association. If you have any questions about Alzheimer's or dementia, their 24/7 hotline is 800-272-3900. If you wish to visit our South Florida Rotary Club, please refer to the YouTube description for more information. And today I'm wearing my Rotary shirt for this presentation because our local club in Sunrise, Florida and National Rotary have both adopted the Alzheimer's Association as both a local charity and as a national charity. My interest in Alzheimer's patients began when I volunteered to serve as a treasurer for my Over-55 Condominium association. I intervened to halt the foreclosure of a destitute owner suffering from advanced Alzheimer's disease so he could be assigned a guardian by the court, so he would not be quickly and cruelly thrown out on the street but could be placed in an acceptable and humane lockdown facility for Alzheimer's patients before his condominium was put up for sale. And I was accused of not being a team player for these actions. Afterwards, our condominium president confided in me that his mother died from dementia, so he did understand where I'm coming from. And I've been reconciled with the community, and they're cooperating and publicizing our Rotary Club's Aging Gracefully seminars, including talks on dementia, to our residents. One complicating factor is this owner had no immediate family other than an estranged sister. Perhaps she was estranged by his demented behavior. His wife had passed away about a decade before his foreclosure, and she was the anchor in his life. We were lucky, and so was he. He had an alcoholic girlfriend, but she was gone when this occurred. Perhaps she left when his money ran out. She passed away from liver disease herself shortly after he was placed in a facility. If she had married him, they would likely be untouchable, and he would have been toast. This reflection also weaves in many screenshots from the Alzheimer's Association website with web links, so the reader can better understand dementia. And they have a 24/7 hotline staffed by qualified staff that can answer questions about dementia with minimal wait times. And the challenge facing all of us is the difficulty in distinguishing between the elderly who have dementia from those who are cantankerous or troublemakers. Indeed, even the experts may not be able to tell when dementia is in its very earliest stages. So be patient with cantankerous elderly neighbors. They might be suffering from early stage dementia. And be quick to notify the police and welfare agencies to evaluate the situation. And you can't even say that since a person has a long history of being a troublemaker, then this person is not in an early stage of dementia. Dementia is not like the common cold, when today you have a cold and yesterday you did not. Dementia often progresses slowly, which means that the personality of someone with dementia does not change as much as it evolves, and often their worst behavior will worsen. Someone who is angry will often simply become angrier, and often their actions are captive to their emotions, which means a person with advanced dementia literally cannot be blamed for their actions. There's a caveat with Alzheimer's and some other forms of dementia. It is not unusual for an Alzheimer's patient to lash out, sometimes physically, out of frustration or discomfort. Maybe they haven't slept well. Maybe they haven't been eating or drinking enough fluids. Maybe they haven't been taking their medications. Maybe they have a urinary tract infection. Maybe the sun is in their eyes, causing discomfort. Or maybe they are angry at their condition and they don't understand what's happening to them. And dementia and Alzheimer's are not synonymous. About 3/4 of the dementia sufferers are Alzheimer's patients, and there are other types of dementia. How should we treat our neighbors who have dementia? This reflection will be from the perspective of the property manager or officer of an over-55 community, but this information will be useful for anybody who wishes to know how they should treat a neighbor with dementia. And before we discuss this, we want to emphasize how important it is for a thorough medical checkup. Although there's really no cure for classic Alzheimer's and most forms of dementia, there are conditions that mirror dementia. Sometimes high blood pressure, severe diabetes, thyroid condition, excessive alcohol or medications, or even a brain tumor can cause short-term dementia. And if that is true, often once the condition is resolved, the signs of dementia will subside or disappear entirely. And what do you do with troublesome neighbors who are over 55? And what do you do with troublesome neighbors who are over 65? And there are cases of Alzheimer's happening in their 30s and 40s and 50s, but usually it's over 65. Now, if someone is exhibiting strange behavior, or is irrationally combative or harassing, or is showing inappropriate sexual behavior, be quick to call the police. Tell your condominium office staff not to take abuse personally, which is hard to do. For strange behavior, be quick to also call their relatives who do not live with them. They need to know. When you call the police on them, let the police know that you're more concerned with their well-being than the actual transgression, that this is primarily a wellness call. Unfortunately, many police are not trained to spot dementia, but that is slowly changing, particularly in Florida. Update the emergency contact information for residents every decade or so. The emergency contact information and living wills, etc. should be attached to the refrigerator or front door so they're available. If you suspect a resident has dementia, turn off the breakers to their stove so they don't burn the building down unintentionally. Before you foreclose on someone who has no family, have someone knock on their door who has experience with dementia patients to evaluate whether or not they have dementia. Not attending to financial affairs is often a sign of dementia, and often their neighbors will have a good feel for this, so ask them. If someone is living alone whose memory is failing, they really should not be living alone. Unfortunately, sometimes a homeless person or alcoholic will take an interest in them, and if they marry them, they can take advantage of them, and there's often little the police or relatives can do. If you are a relative, be kindly assertive, or even say this is a temporary move. Rarely will someone with dementia agree to make any major changes in their life. Who should knock on the door to evaluate whether a resident has dementia? Again, ask for input from the neighbors. And the answer depends on what local resources are available. We can provide input for Florida. Keep in mind, through the Alzheimer's Association, you have experts on call free for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on their hotline at 1-800-272-3900. You can ask them caretaker questions, and you can also obtain advice on how to navigate the resources in your local area. For Florida, the police may be helpful. The state agencies don't have the funding to send professionals out to evaluate people until they're referred to the court system or if there's a case of elder abuse. You can ask a private guardianship service for assistance, and the guardian we called was very helpful in quickly evaluating our resident who had dementia. Many police departments in Florida and across the country have set up mental health training programs for policemen. This reflection reviews several articles from the Atlantic Magazine and other sources on the status of the CIT police officer training program pioneered in Miami and other cities. That has been adopted by most police departments in Florida and many police departments across the country. The Florida legislature passed a bill encouraging police departments to add training for dementia patients, and hopefully other states are doing this as well. And we can see many of these trends in one of the most comprehensive case histories of an Alzheimer's patient, and that is Glenn Campbell's widow's account of his slow descent into dementia, leading eventually to his passing. And we relate this narrative of his life to the 10 signs of dementia from the Alzheimer's website. Rita Hayworth's daughter was one of the original celebrity fundraisers and a long-standing member of the Alzheimer's Association. Her story and the story of how Tony Bennett and Lady Gaga sponsored a last duet concert when he had advanced Alzheimer's are touching tales. And we reflect on Travelers to Unimaginable Lands, a fascinating collection of case studies on how dementia affects both caretakers and their loved ones who have dementia. And it's interesting for both a caretaker and an academic point of view. We also reflect on 2 excellent guides on taking care of Alzheimer's patients, Learning to Speak Alzheimer's and the Dementia Caretaker's Guide. Although this is not a book about dementia, Oliver Sacks' case studies, including The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat, is the classic and often cited collection of case studies of patients suffering from both puzzling and fascinating neurological conditions, some of which resemble dementia, or may be dementia, and also the curious story of Phineas Gage, the most famous schmuck in the history of psychology. Now we'll discuss the sources we used for this video. Behind me and to my side are the many books we have reviewed in our videos on dementia and mental health in general. And Kim Campbell's account of her marriage to Glenn Campbell is by far the most informative profile of an Alzheimer's patient as his disease progresses. And AARP has a review of this book by Kim Campbell.